Yes, you're still watching Power Breakfast right here on Citizen TV, and it's time now for us to take a look at today's headlines. And today we have a very special panel. Of course, it's made up of Barak Muluka, political analyst, who will be joining us a bit later. Jogu Barua, Member of Parliament for Gishugu. David Ucheng, Member of Parliament for Ugenya. Chris Omala, Member of Parliament of Kiminini. And today we have a special guest with us. This is Maggie Reri, Managing Director of TIFA Research. And of course, she's here. Karibu sana, Maggie.
Thank you.
Yes, it's usually a panel made up of gentlemen only, but I'm sure the gentlemen appreciate the presence of a lady today.
It's always good to have a lady around.
Yes. Karibu sana, feel free, feel at home. So now, of course, we're going to start with the TIFA poll that was released yesterday. And if my director can just help me with this, a new poll conducted by Trends and Insights Africa, it's Trends and Insights Africa, shows that Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero is still the leading candidate in the race for the top city-county job. The survey, however, indicates a slim margin between Kidero and Senator Mike Sonko. Now, if elections for Nairobi Governor are to be held today, with 36% of those polls supporting Kidero against Sonko's 30%. Support for Water and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary, curiously, that's Eugene Wamalwa, who has expressed an interest in the seat, stood at 1%. In the poll conducted between 28th and 31st of July 2016, out of the 719 respondents polled, 36% said they would vote for Kidero, while 30% backed Senator Mike Sonko, with 1% only for Chris Wamalwa. Now that says a lot.
Eugene.
For Eugene Wamalwa. Now, 17% of respondents could not decide who to vote for. Remember, the Greater South MP Dennis Wawero nominated MP Johnson Sakaja and Bishop Margaret Wanjiru are also in the race. They each polled 3%. Yeah. The poll went further to Kiambu County, and Ferdinand Waititu is the most popular candidate in the race for governor, with 49% support. That's ahead of William Kabogo, who trailed him with 22%. 18% had not settled on who to vote for. In Machakos County, Governor Alfred Mutua leads by what would be described as a possible landslide. 81% of those polled back him. 8% of respondents indicated that they would vote for Machakos Senator Johnston Mudama, who is yet to express his interest in the position, while 3% would go for Deputy Governor Bernard Kiala. Now, of course, with the history of polls in Kenya, they've been questioned. Doubts have been expressed, especially by politicians, because when it does favor them, they accept it. When it goes the other way, they criticize it. And that's why we have the politicians here to question these polls. And probably it started with Nairobi. Eugene Wamalwa, 1%. Everyone expected that with the interest generated by Eugene Wamalwa expressing interest in this job, at least he would have garnered some support, at least maybe not the leading candidate, but not 1%. What does he say about the political situation right now in Nairobi, before even the politicians say anything?
Okay, so touching on Eugene, 1%, but the question is, whether he hasn't declared, he has been endorsed by some people in the background, you know, roadside declarations. Yes. So it's been about 3 to 4 weeks since people started saying that she'd be the candidate. However, the question is, what ticket is he running under, and which political arm or body has endorsed him? So far, nobody. So right now, he has 1% because we don't know what party he's going to run under. And assuming that he was to be endorsed by Jubilee, the question is whether people would actually vote for him. So assuming that happens, then you'd have a 3-horse race where you'd have Kidero, Sonko, and perhaps Eugene Wamalwa. But it's too early to tell. Let's see what happens in the next few months. Okay.
Kidero, still the leading candidate. With all this talk, we all assumed that, okay, Kidero is done, because no one was talking about him. Jubilee, at least we thought, you have 6 candidates running for position of governor in Nairobi, Bwana Barua. When you see Kidero ahead of all these candidates, and all your candidates are getting 3% approval, you should be worried now.
Okay, I think we don't have 6 candidates. What we have got 6 aspirants seeking the Jubilee ticket. Yes. So once the nominations are done, we shall have 1 ODM or CORD candidate against a Jubilee candidate and maybe another party's candidate. So far, the Jubilee affiliated candidates, Mike Sonko, Dennis Wawero, Eugene Wamalwa, of course, Jubilee associated, that is the total, if they have to believe that the polls, that would be the total support for Jubilee. So what is important is who gets nominated for the Jubilee ticket.
Do you believe these polls?
First of all, I don't want to say I believe these polls, because neither do I doubt them. But what I know is that polls in Kenya, if they are not professionally conducted, they can be a recipe for chaos in this country. And at the moment, the way polls are being conducted, with due respect to my sister Ireri here, it's like the weather forecast. Something you never trust at any particular time. If you look at the United States of America, when Clinton is still to be at 49 and Trump is at 9, it's actually the youth thing, because they actually do it scientifically. I remember we had a discussion on scientific research here with Chris Omaro here, but the polls must be done scientifically. The other thing is, this thing that they are doing is such a serious issue in this country that they even swear an office of they should swear neutrality before they're even given a chance to do that, because we have to remove the personal influence from this thing. Right now, we don't know who pays for those polls, who commissions them, and where in some areas and not the other areas. We don't know whether somebody like Mutua or even Kidero or even Waititu, who actually leaders, are the ones who commission those polls. Can they come out clean and see this is the way polls should be done, and we have a registration that is going to guide their performance. Right now, there's nothing else.
I just want to pick on that and say, and you've said a very good example that in the US, right now you believe the polls because they're being conducted. Now, let me tell you one thing. Before I got to where I am now, I used to work for a multinational. That multinational used to do polls in the UK, in France, but when we did polls in Kenya, the Kenyan politicians and the electorate would say those polls are not correct. I don't think the issue is the methodology or the science around it. I just think that Kenyans do not understand polling, and they're not ready to accept these findings. And I understand, because the minute you release a poll, which by the way the methodology is scientific, it's like a report form of the particular political candidate out in the public. So what do? They have to come out and protest. So having said that, we use a very scientific methodology. We have an association which has basically recommended how it should be done. I'm a member of that association, and we abide by it. By the way, there's even an act in Parliament that went ahead and said these are how opinion polls should be done. So we have our own code of ethics, and we're already self-regulated. We are using a scientific methodology, and I'd suggest that you look at our methodology critically before you see we are not.
Politicians have been known. We'll come back.
I'm saying this because she has to react to this. Why I'm saying that is because I've been called by pollsters, ask me to pay money so you can do opinion poll in my constituency. That's what's making us as politicians cast doubt on the objectivity of the whole thing. You don't question your competence. I'm sure your competence. The other thing is just the whole thing is about the Kenyan culture. And don't forget you are one in an institution who could have worked in the UK with a credible organization. Other people in that organization possibly may be having.
We cannot be doing that. We cannot be doing that if we're going to be discussing polls. Polls are a phenomenon that's going to remain with us forever. And I think the best thing to do is to start knowing how to work with them. As a politician, you must learn to work with numbers and try to interrogate those numbers instead of always trying to hit the messenger. Let's look at the numbers that they are talking about. What are the indicators? Like, for example, I would have loved to see from this poll, what has Kidero done for the last 6 months since the last poll was done that is tilting the balance? What is Waititu doing right in Kiambu? I mean, I have not seen it in the polls. It didn't show there. In the polls that were released yesterday, the poll of polls by the CNN, they tell you that the reason Trump has picked up is because of this. Is this, and the reason Clinton is going down is because of this. We want to see those variances. What is causing this variances? It's important because for the polls to be believable, I mean, it's important that they have questions that respond to the issues of the day.
Do you believe these polls?
I mean, I don't have a reason to question them. But
normally politicians have a tendency to always, as I said earlier, to always accept the results of polls when they favor them. I'm sure Governor Kidero right now would accept these polls. Probably Eugene Wamalo would not be as ready to accept the polls. Why is it that way? Don't you think you should just be accepting of this? Because it's a service and they are professionally done.
Thank you. First and foremost, before I answer that, I want to tell the Kenyans, I'm not in Rio, Brazil. I'm very much in Kenya. I'm here, and I've not won any gold in Rio. As whatever is going on in social media, as you can see, I'm here.
I can confirm he's with us.
I'm not in Rio.
We'll come back to that, because you even have a photo of you apparently in Rio, Brazil.
Yes.
We'll come back to that.
I'm not in Rio. I'm very much here. Now, pertaining the issue of polls, first of all, I want to say that I subscribe to the School of Science, and I do believe in numbers. And when you look at this scientific research, particularly when it comes to polls, mostly it was used to know the consumer behavior. Many products in the market, you know, today a consumer might be comfortable with these products, tomorrow there's some dissatisfaction. So you find this science was particularly the multinationals. They wanted to know the consumer behavior in terms of trying to design what kind of products, what value proposition that is there. Now, when it comes to polling, that is science, we should believe in them if it's done scientifically. And when you talk of scientific research, first and foremost, before you do any polling or you do any survey, you must understand what is the research design. You must understand the research design. By understanding the research design, it will help you to do a questionnaire. So you must understand the questionnaire design. Is it scientific? At times I look at the kind of questions that are being asked. Obviously, you'll get bias, and that's why we get wrong results. Depending on how you ask your questions, you might be asking somebody a leading question, and obviously respect that answer. And I'm drafting a bill in Parliament whereby before any opinion poll is carried out, there must be full disclosure in terms of understanding what is the research design that is being used, what is the questionnaire design. From there, you need to understand what methodologies are being used in terms of data analysis. And you must also understand the sampling framework. The sample that you are putting in place, does it give a representation of the entire population? If your sampling has not been done properly, obviously, you are likely to get wrong results. If the questionnaire, the way you've designed, the way you've asked questions in a biased manner, they are likely to get misleading results. So I want to dismiss these results of my friend, the lady here, my sister, because it is important that before you release any results, and before even you conduct, there must be a panel. It is done in academia. When you're doing any research at the university, before you're allowed to go to the field, there is a panel you must come and defend and present to them. You tell them, this is what I'm going to do the survey. This is the objective of that particular survey. This is the hypothesis that you have in place. You'll have to give the sampling framework that is absolutely away from bias.
Fred,
but if
I know it's not all.
No, I'm not finished.
You can say you cannot say.
Let me finish. Let me speak.
We're having a discussion.
We're
having a discussion.
Yes.
We are not having a speech being given. I agree wholly with what he said. But you cannot tell us you want to dismiss it because of a couple of things that were not done.
But I have reasons.
Yet you don't know whether they were done or not.
Listen to my reasons. That's why I'm saying
I've not heard you really tell me.
Yeah. Let me finish. You know, I'm an expert in this area.
Yes.
So that's why I can speak with authority. And he really knows that. So my friend here should listen. Okay? So Madam needs to tell us the sampling framework.
That's better.
So that you understand this sample.
That's better, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said listen.
That's
listening.
Okay, so you can't dismiss before you listen. Okay.
I'm not finished. That's why we said, no, just a minute, just because I've not finished. And I want Kenyans to watch. Yes. And my friends who are outside there, like my friend the scholar here, he is agreeing with me. So my brother is not yet agreeing because he has not reached the level.
All of us are not
let me finish. No. Let me tell you one thing about sampling. When you go see a doctor, you want to know whether you have a test of malaria. He'll get a bit of your blood. That particular sample is a representation of the entire blood of your body. So that's why when you get that results, you generalize that this is a true picture. So if a sample is not representative, obviously, you will get some results which is biased. And it's important in any research, you must question. I was brought up by a grandmother. Yes. When you go home to take kideri, when she wants to test and see whether the kideri is ready so that you can serve, she'll sample a bit of it, she'll say it's ready, then she'll serve. That is what we call sampling.
So your main question is about the sampling.
Yes,
let's give Maggie a chance.
whether it was a representation. And even the kind of questions that were asked.
Yes.
Are they giving questions?
No, I'm just trying to add to what he's saying. Is that what I would like to add to what Chris is saying is that what you need to have to know from the pollster is that sample representative. For example, if you take 1,000 people in Kiambu, and you know the voters in Kiambu could be about 800,000, do you think that is adequate representation? The other thing is, in a population, that's a sample population, not a population. The elements in that population must be having similar characteristics. This one is what Honorable Cheng is saying. The reasons behind the tilt of vote of the poll are not being said. And the population represents people or objects with similar characteristics. When you count my constituents, for example, there are those who expect me to do them a road. There are those who expect me to do them a bridge. There are those who expect me to give them pay school fees. So they don't have interest. So you cannot say that this population you are sampling is homogeneous. The other thing is, when you ask a question, you do vote for Cheng or Honorable Amalwa here, you are actually basing it on name recognition.
No, okay.
Because there are no factors.
Now we need to give a chance. And in a short while before we come to you, Maggie, we'll be joining Barack Muluk on the other side of the studio with my colleague Willis Raburu, because apart from the politicians, at least he's the only neutral panelist we have. And he'll tell us if at all he believes the polls. But now, please answer the question about the sampling methodology.
Okay, let me start with what you just said towards the end. You're talking about the questionnaire and how the questions are phrased. And you're saying that we go out and ask people, would I vote for so and so and so and so? No, that is not the accepted way of asking questions in an opinion poll. You actually do not prompt. You go out and say, if elections are to be held today, who do you vote for? Silence. And then you record. And you don't prompt, because by prompting, then you're giving an idea to the respondent which kind of people are likely to be running for the election. So I'd like to correct that. And even yesterday on social media, a lot of people are asking me how come Miguna's name was not on the list and so on. It is because we did not prompt. We waited for people to give us an answer. So we've already talked about the questions. Now let's talk about the sampling methodology. What is our frame? At the moment, there are two options that you can use. And I would like to say two options, because we have to decide which is the best option. You can either use the census data, or you can use the voter register. At the moment, you know, IEBC is currently, or has registered some voters, but has not published the updated voter register. In the absence of that, and right now I know some pollsters are using the old register, and others could be using the census data. So what did we use for now? But moving forward, you're going to use another methodology. We use the census data. We said anyone aged 18 plus, according to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we're going to use that as our sampling frame. Closer to the election, when the IBC register is out, we shall use that as a sampling frame. So we say, let's say I'm in Nairobi. What is the population for Nairobi? Or the same, it's about 4 million. What is the population of those aged 18 plus? We know the sample size. Now you take that sample, and our sample was 719 respondents, and we take that sample and we say how we're going to distribute it across the 17 sub-counties. Distribute it proportionate to population size, because that's what is required. Then after that, you say below the sub-counties, what do we have? We have wards. Again, below the wards, you distribute it proportionate to population size. So now you have the sample by sub-county and by ward. Then what do? You have to go to a particular ward to decide and make an interview a respondent. When you go to a particular ward, where do you start? We usually we have something called the starting points. You pick a school, a church, a mosque, or any easily identifiable landmark. And this is how we call randomizing, how you select households and how you select people in the household. When you get to that particular point, this is what you call a random walk. You start your walk and you count like 4 houses, and then you get to a house, you knock on the door and you say, I would like to interview anyone who's aged 18 plus. You list the people who are aged 18 plus. Then you actually find out, are they registered voters? Because you're also screening whether they're registered voters. Once you find out whether they're registered voters, if there are 5, you have to select one randomly. You select one randomly. There's a possibility that person is not going to be the house, and the researcher has to ask, when is this person going to come back? And you go back. We're allowed to have 3 callbacks. If you go and call back and you find the person is not there, then you can substitute. We then conduct the interview, and we interview the person alone without any person listening to the conversation, because we don't want any influence, and then we do the interview. When we collect the data, we come back and start analyzing. We have to look at the demographics of the sample. And we run it by age, by gender, and education qualifications, and you say this is how our sample is looking. How does the data look in the census data? Is there any variation? Then what you do is something called weighting. You weight to correct whether there is an over sample or an under sample in a particular demographics. Once you have sorted out any imbalance, because you cannot be as accurate, you cannot say you're going to go for 20% females, then you get 20%. You can actually get 21 or 19. Once you correct that, that's when you run the data and you begin to report. Now, if that is the case, then you can say that the sample reflects the census data and it is accurate. And assuming that I had the voter register, an updated one, a correct one, and a clean one, then I would use the same approach where I would distribute the sample proportionate to population size, no, not population, proportionate to the voter register, and use the random sampling. So that is how we do it. Now, is that the standard way of doing it? Actually, globally, there are methods of various methods of doing sampling, but that is the one that is recommended for Africa. Yes. And I've touched on sampling.
Yes. But because I know there are quite a number of questions.
Before you go to Barack.
We need to go to Barack because he has another question. We'll come back, collect all these questions, and she'll answer. Now, Barack Muluka is a political analyst, and he, I'm sure, will speak from a neutral point, unlike these politicians whose bias are known. So let's now move to Barack Muluka with Willis Raburu on the other side of the studio.
Hi, thank you very much, Fred. Of course, the first question is, what is your view? What are your views on the polls before we look at them in depth?
First, polls are scientific. At least they take that label that they're scientific. But the science in them has got to be subjected to test. That we need indeed to be shown the methodology, we need to be shown the research design, we need to be shown the demographics. The challenge that I do have with the kinds of results that we are given by the various pollsters in this country is that they give you the outcomes. They never go into the depth of sharing with you how they actually constructed the research issues that some of the honorable members have been talking about. And therefore, usually if you just gave me figures like this and maybe you made a statement like we used such and such kind of sampling methodology without even going into depth, even describing the overall population that you are dealing with, one would be allowed to have the kind of benefit of doubt that some of the people there have expressed. We need more information in order for us to be able to calibrate and to be able to even establish that there's an internal rigor and that there are no contradictions that are being put aside. I think it was Honorable Cheng who was saying that it's fine to tell us that the people prefer such and such a candidate, but why? The why of it. And we are seeing actually in the United States, as has been mentioned, that there are very clear reasons why someone seems to be picking up or they seem to be dropping. We don't get that here.
So in your estimation, if you look at, for example, what we have here, because I look at April and July, if we start with Evans Kidero, in April he was at 28%, and he rose significantly to 36% in July.
That is 8%.
8%, yes.
Within the space of
a month.
1 month. It's astronomical. It's a very huge ascendancy. And there need to be some very monumental factors that have led to that. You can see that the undecided have dropped by about 7%, from 24 to 17. We need to understand why. Even Anne Waiguru, while perhaps we have not been hearing a lot about her lately, to move from 7% to 0%, she's not even among the others who are sitting at 9%. We need to know what the causative factors are.
And we also see there Margaret Wanjiru remained at a constant. Johnson Sakaja rose 2%.
Yes, Johnson Sakaja rose 2%. To move from 1% to 3% is actually very, very phenomenal, because it's actually a 200% increment. And you know, that is huge. It is massive. We must understand why he has made such a huge leap forward. So such are some of the things which our good friends, the pollsters, Magireri and others, if they want us to believe them, they need to address such issues.
There's also in Machakos, where there's a landslide victory predicted for Alfred, Governor, the incumbent Alfred Mutua.
Yes.
Where we have 81% saying if elections were to be held today, they would vote him back as governor. What do you think?
That's despite the various things that have been happening in that county. Just now, for example, we are aware that the health workers are on strike, that patients are coming to Nairobi, they are going to other hospitals in the neighborhood, in Kiambu. Even Kiambu becomes a neighborhood in this kind of context. And one wants to understand the dynamics that are at play. 81% is virtually taking everything that is on the slate. If that's where he's sitting, then he's quite comfortable. I think nothing short of a miracle would overturn that, and one wants to appreciate the dynamics at work once again.
Interesting thing also that he appeals more to the females and the younger voters.
Yes. Why is it? Is it because he's handsome, he's good looking? Is it because he has provided services that address women's needs there? These females, perhaps there's another slide. I don't know. There could be another slide, because as I've said, I've not interacted with the whole research findings. Do we have demographics within the women that we would say that these women are Christians, these women here are Muslims, these women here are dancers, they are of such and such an age? Where are those internal demographics that are nuanced? There's such a thing as nuancing in research, and those nuances make all the difference. Remember that we are talking of a situation where if someone has a 0-point-something percentage advantage over you, they beat you, they have beaten you, and they take the whole thing. So we need those nuances. What is it about this population that is making them to have a certain slant as opposed to another one?
Like for this one, they're saying that the reason why they would vote for Mutua is because he has helped bring development to Machakos.
Perhaps he has. Perhaps he has brought development, or perhaps they feel, and you know, something like a feeling. We don't have a philometer that we can use to say that we are measuring the feeling. It's just an expression of a disposition. That from where I am, when I reflect about this individual, my perception, my feeling is that they have brought about development. So that becomes very dicey, because it's something that can be interrogated and it could be shot down.
All right, of course, there are many others, and you know, others and questions as well about political party affiliation. Many saying they would vote for Mudama in that regard, and then there's also different aspects of it. But of course, this is the opportunity also for you, Barak, because Magireri is seated right there. If you were to pose a question to her, what would the question be?
My question would be actually twofold. Number one is that I'm aware from an informed platform that whenever these kinds of polls are being conducted, they also approach politicians, political parties, political leaders, and they will tell them that we are going to be conducting a survey at such and such a time, and would you have any question that you would like us to include in the questionnaire that we have? I would want to know from her whether in this whole exercise they have had to do that, to speak to any politicians or political parties, and if they did, could they disclose which those politicians were, and how that may or may not have influenced the outcomes.
And of course, there's that question, and of course also the question of what's being raised, Maggie, is also the question of what is going to be what is released to the public in terms of the facts that you've been having in the discussion there. And we'll toss it back over to you. Barack will be joining the panel a little bit later on as well. So it's back to you, Fred, and to Maggie as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Willis. Thanks, Maggie Reri is here. I hope you had the question from Barack Muluka. Did you talk to any politicians, perhaps any of these ones that have been polled? Did you get to talk to any of them?
So when we did the study, we commissioned it ourselves. I'd like to emphasize we used our own funds to commission. And please note that we only did it in Nairobi, Machakos and Kiambu, meaning that we use researchers who live here, so the costs were not phenomenal. If you're doing a national survey, then the cost would be quite high. Did we approach any of the politicians? No, we don't approach the politicians. That's not our policy, because if you approach them, especially before you go to the field, it becomes another whole discussion. Please ensure that I'm being rated highly, please, or even they could begin now to push harder and see whether they can penetrate our field staff. But no, we did not approach them. We've got no contact with the politicians. However, the report is available. So if anyone right now comes and says, I'd like a breakdown of the demographics and all that, I'm more than willing to give it to them.
Because that data is there.
The data is there.
And the methodology is fully explained.
It is fully explained. And you see, what has happened is that, of course, I understand where the media are coming from. They come from the press. They come for the press release or the press briefing. We explain to them the methodology. But by the time it goes on air, the part where we talked about the methodology, which is extremely boring, is cut. But it's actually there. And because it's there, because that is a requirement by the Act. You must indicate the methodology. So I'd encourage people to visit our website. All that information is there, and they can read and question it.
Yeah, the main issue that I think the issue erased, who is paying is a very important issue. Because Kenyans have gone to that level, not gone to that level where they believe polls because they've been released. They always think that probably someone paid for it. And what do you do to assure Kenyans that these polls are not being paid for?
There's some polls which are paid for. If I commission a poll, I have to foot the cost.
But if you commission a poll today and you pay me to do it, I would not release it, because I then become your campaign manager by releasing it to the public. So I would not want to do that. And for the 3 counties, I have not been paid by the 3 individuals. But I just want to pick on something you said. How do you convince that Kenyans that these polls are believable? I did an experiment about 3-4 years ago, and we said, we're going to stop doing political opinion polling. We're going to start asking questions on various issues. So we started asking questions on things like what are things that things like romance. We started asking things about fashion. We started asking quite a number of social issues. And then I went on radio and we had this discussion. And Kenyans were calling saying, I believe that opinion poll because whatever you said is accurate. Then I asked them, but when we do political polls, why do you not agree with them? And that's a problem. We do not want to listen to reality.
Yes, now in a short while we need to let Maggie Reri leave the studio. But brief questions just to the two of you, to Maggie Reri before she leaves.
Maggie is in business. And you're in business, every investment you expect returns. So she comes and tells us, no one funded this. Was it a corporate social responsibility? That's a question that I'm asking. Secondly, sampling is very, very critical in any research. And we have probability sampling methods and non-probability. It is important that before any research is commissioned, there must be a panel. And I'm working out on that bill that had been done by Senator, I think, Halwale. I want to amend it and maybe beef it up. Because really, you do research to be able maybe to develop a trend analysis and be able to for decision making. For instance, I brought a bill of ranking in schools, which was a very good bill. Which the issue is, has she bothered to go and maybe do any survey or a problem that we had, like banning of schools? Why is it that all the polls they are doing, they are centered when it comes to politics? Because these people rush, come and pay. Maybe they want that information. For example, wherever Mutua is, must be smiling all the way. But he'll want to see. Look at that research, look at the methodology, what kind of questions were asked, where was the sampling, where were the targets. And in terms of
questioning who funds...
absolutely, that was the first question. And as I said earlier, this research is important, particularly when you want to launch a product or to develop a solution or a service in any market. You want to do research so that people know where are the gaps, so that when you come in, you're coming to fill.
Yes.
So that is how research was developed, and that's why multinationals based on that. My question to Maggie is this. We need to know the sampling methodology, whether there's any bias or there's no bias. Secondly, the questions. There are some questions which are mutually inclusive. For instance, when you say that that Kidero has done well, you go further and ask, what are some of the issues that he has put in place that you are happy about?
Yes.
You know, so we need that complete, full disclosure so that we can be able to believe in them. In the absence of that, I will trash them away.
Yes.
I didn't expect Honorable Eugene Wamala to have 1%.
But it's not even
obviously. No.
To be fair to Maggie, I think she explained this earlier.
Yeah,
even the issue about sampling, I think
she has.
I have.
The question now is about
not even that. For every time you see a chart in our survey, the question is there exactly as it was asked.
As it was asked.
Yes. So the information is there. I'm really requesting Honorable Wamalwa, please. I will send you the document, and then now we can engage on is this right or is this right.
On the question of corporate social corporate social responsibility, why do you decide to fund such a program?
Can I tell you, when we, for example, we had a questionnaire for Nairobi. So we had questions on politics, we had questions on other issues. When we send it to the media, and this is the issue, when you send it to the media, they're not interested in the other content, they're interested in the political zone. That's the other issue. What is driving news nowadays? Headline news has to be political. So even in terms of publicizing, there's other content, but whatever goes out.
All this content was funded, the entire site was funded by your area.
Yes, we funded it. But the question is, how much does it cost to do a survey in the 3 counties? It's not expensive. So we decided that we're going to be doing these polls on a regular basis because at the end of the day, there's been discussions around who's popular, who's not popular. Is this person the right person to be the Jubilee ticket bearer? Is this the right person to be the court ticket bearer? So we're providing data that can inform discussions and debates.
Final question.
My simple question. First of all, is a comment. There you have explained the way you take data from the field. To me, it's just like testing the instrument. The level you reached is testing the efficacy of your instrument. That's the research question. Because how many people do you take from Nairobi, for example?
Sample 719.
700. How many constituencies do you have in Nairobi? What do you have in Nairobi?
17.
So divide by that, like a few people from maybe 20, 30 people per ward. So that could not be very representative. What I'm asking also is that I'm suggesting that there is a lot of interest of data on other counties. Like my county of Kirinyaga, people are very actively speculating who is going to be the next member of parliament, next governor. So when you tell us this is an act of philanthropy, I did wonder why it should be so philanthropic.
If Mheshimiwa wants a poll conducted in his constituency, can he approach you and pay for that poll and it is conducted? And then you give the data, the results directly to him.
Before that, I was actually finishing up and saying, in politics, there is a lot in what is not said. What is said is just part of it. And you as pollsters must be able to capture that. For example, if I go to church and they talk to people and tell them, 2017, I'm going to be defending my seat, they all say they support me. If Chris, my opponent, goes there, they would say the same. So there must be another way of digging deeper behind what is said, because there's much more than what is said, and your instrument must be able to capture that. So the way you do fashion research should not be the same way you do political research.
Yes. Because of time, we'd beg to move on.
I just want to talk about the fact that he said if the sample of 719 for Nairobi represented or not. In our methodology, we say our sample has a margin of error of minus plus 4%. It means for every percentage you see, it could be minus or plus 4%. Then our analysis is by total and by male-female. Now, the minute we start going at analysis by the 17 sub-counties, the sample size will go down and the margin of error will increase. So you'll notice in our report, we don't analyze by the 17 sub-counties because at that point, the error is too high. So that's why we are sticking to the total sample and urban and rural, not urban and rural, male and female. Now, the other thing I'd like to emphasize is that a sample is a sample. And a sample is a representative sample. For the whole country, by the way, right now, we're taking a sample of 2,000. For a population of, an adult population about 20 million, we're taking a sample of 2,000. For Nairobi, we took a sample of 719. And you can imagine how big that sample size is relative to the national one. Back to your last question, you go to church, you declare. At the end of the day, what we do is that we go back to the households and confirm, are your declarations resonating with the public? And that's where we ask the question, who do you vote for? So I think I've picked on that.
That's not a question. I just want to ask all of us that, you see, opinion polls do not come from heaven. They come from, they're just here with us. What we must learn to do as politicians, and anybody else who wants to do politics, is that we must learn to use the numbers. You can hit on high, you can do all those things you want to do. Let's utilize these numbers. Opinion polls are not elections.
We've not refused.
They're not. Let's use the numbers to help us do our planning. That's why we do opinion polling. And two, I don't speak for them. But two, the reason these things are released and they say it's TIFA, they're also doing their own marketing. Because they do other work apart from opinion polling. I think we need to also understand the fact that he uses this as a marketing tool also to get customers on.
I think Chris, the best thing is not to agree totally with her, because we are not grilling her. We are trying to make Kenyans understand. Absolutely. That's why we're asking those questions. So just agreeing with her figures does not make a difference.
I don't think we agree with them. I just think we use them for our planning and process.
The fact remains that
you need to ask us.
We're already into the election year.
Yes.
363 days to election date. That means polling will be something that we have to put up with. It will be something that we get regularly. So yes, it's good to understand this.
I will expedite my amendment so that when we approach elections, they can subscribe to total scientific methodologies without any bias.
Yes, now we need to allow Maggie Reri, Managing Director of TIFA Research, to go back to doing more research and giving us more data. Of course, we'll be looking forward to your next opinion poll, and we'll definitely discuss it further. Of course, Barak Muluka will be joining us in a short while. We'll still be here with Jogu Barua, David Ucheng and Chris Omalo, members of Parliament. We now take a short break. We'll be right back.